Hello everyone, welcome to the new session of Classification and Nomenclature of Carbohydrates Parts 1. So in this session we are going to study about the classification system for the carbohydrate and also the nomenclature about it. So in this session we are going to study an introduction to the carbohydrate. So what are carbohydrates, that we are going to understand in this topic, and there will be the classification of carbohydrates. Then we will also study about the difference between the monosaccharides and polysaccharides and disaccharides. So these are the different types. Once you understand the classification, then you came to know that there are three different types of polysaccharide, right? Depending upon the number of the monomers. So this is the monosaccharide, then there will be a polysaccharide and disaccharide. So this difference we are going to see in this particular topic. So carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are the good source of energy, right? We all know that by the process of photosynthesis, right? By the process of photosynthesis, plants makes their food, right? They make their food, and this food is in the form of what? Glucose. And this glucose, when present in this cell and there is a process of respiration, then it provides you energy. This we all know, right? So the carbohydrates are the good source of energy. So whatever the food we are eating, most of the food are having the carbs in it, right? And the carbohydrates, that is the sum of carbohydrates, are the polysaccharide. This we are going to understand, that what is the polysaccharide, right? And are the long chains of sugar. So if this is a sugar, then this is a long chain of sugar, like this. So this is called a polysaccharide. So if this is a one single sugar, then or any monomer of the carbohydrate, then it is called as monosaccharide. And when we join this in a form of chain, we not join, it is present in the nature, it is found in the nature, so that is called as polysaccharides. So polysaccharides are the long chain of sugar. Monosaccharides are simple sugar. They are quite simple, right? And that are composed of 3 to 7 carbon atom. So this is one particular molecule. This is one particular molecule, and this molecule can have 3 carbon, that can have 4 carbon, that can have 5 carbon, that can have 6 carbon, and that can also have 7 carbon. So that is why 3 to 7 carbon. So the monosaccharides are the, you can say, the monomers, and they are made up of different numbers of carbon. Sometime it is 3, sometime it is 4, sometime it is 5, 6 or 7, and they are considered as the simple sugar. They are very simple, so they are considered. We will see the characteristic of this. So these are the monosaccharides, are the simple sugar. They have a free aldehyde or ketone, right? So aldehyde group, we all know, CHO, and they are also having the ketone group, C double bond O, right? We will see that they are having the aldehyde and ketone group, which act as a reducing agent and are known as reducing sugar. So the one which is having the aldehyde group or the ketone group, they are considered as a reducing sugar. So this is very, very important, right? The sugars that are having aldehyde and ketone are called as reducing sugar, because they are having this is the property that they acts as a reducing agent, and that is why they are called as reducing sugar. So disaccharides are made up of 2 monosaccharides. Now we know that monosaccharide, 3 to 7 carbon atom, when they are having, then they are considered as a monosaccharide, right? And disaccharide are made up of two monosaccharide. Means when two monosaccharide, suppose this is a glucose, again this is a glucose, are joined together, then it is called as disaccharide. So disaccharides are made up of two monosaccharides. The bond shared between the two monosaccharides are the glycosidic bond. So this is very, very important from the examination point of view. Many times it has been asked that in the disaccharide, what type of bond is there? So that is the glycosidic bond. So glycosidic bond, if you remember, it is also present in the nucleotides, right? The bond that is between the sugar molecule and the nitrogenous bases, that is the glycosidic bond. And the bond between the sugar and the phosphorus group, that is the diphosphate group, or the phosphate bonds are there, right? So this is the glycosidic bond that is present in between the two monomers or the monosaccharides, and ultimately it forms the disaccharides. Okay, so this is very, very important. The one which is having CHO and C double bond O, that is the aldehyde and the ketone group, are considered as the reducing agent. These functional group when present in the carbohydrates, they forms that carbohydrate as a reducing agent. And this is known as reducing sugar, and that sugar is known as reducing sugar, right? And the disaccharide, we all know, monosaccharide, single monomer, and it may have 3 to 7 carbon atom, right? So it is a monosaccharide. When two monosaccharide join together with the help of the glycosidic bond, then they are called as disaccharides. Monosaccharide and disaccharide are sweet, crystalline, and water soluble substances. So we all know that sugar is in the form of crystals. You must have seen this small crystals, right? So they are crystal form. Sugars are in crystal form. They are sweet in nature. They give sweet taste. And also they are water soluble. So when you dissolve it in water, it get easily dissolved in it, right? Polysaccharides are the polymers of monosaccharide. Now they are not sweet in taste, they are not water soluble, and they are not in the form of crystals. This is the very difference between the polysaccharides and the monosaccharides, right? We will see in a form of a table that what are the differences between these sugar. But here you have to remember this, monosaccharides and the disaccharides are sweet, crystalline, and water soluble substances, whereas the polysaccharides are the polymers of monosaccharide. We have already discussed, suppose these are the monomers. Now these monomers are present in the form of long chain fibers. It form a fiber form by forming this glycosidic bond only, right? And so they are present in this form, like this, and they can have a branching also, that we will discuss later. But this is the polysaccharide structure. You can see this, and this is a monomer. So suppose this is the monosaccharide. This is single molecule of the monosaccharide, right? And this can have the carbon from 3 to 7. Ranges of the carbon that is present in the monosaccharide, that is 3 to 7, and according to that they are having their different names as well. They are unsweet and complex carbohydrates. Who? Polysaccharides. They are unsweet, means they are not sweet in taste, and they are very complex. Like if you see the monosaccharide, they are very simple, right? But this polysaccharide, which is made up of the chain of the monosaccharide, it is a very complex structure. We will see some of the polysaccharide. So they are insoluble in water and are not crystalline form. right? So these are insoluble in water. They do not get dissolved in water, and they are not in a crystalline form as well. They are in the form of generally fibers, right? For example, cellulose, right? Okay. So some of the carbohydrate example we all know: glucose, fructose, sucrose, maltose, starch, and cellulose. So these are the polysaccharide example, right? And this is the glucose, fructose, monosaccharides. Sucrose and maltose, these are the disaccharides. Okay. So you must remember, this is the characteristic of the polysaccharide, that they are unsweet, means not sweet in taste. They are quite complex structure, so they are considered as a complex carbohydrates. They are insoluble in water. When you put this polysaccharide in water, they do not get dissolved, as you have seen in the case of monosaccharides, and they are not in a crystal form. So some of the examples of carbohydrates are glucose, fructose, sucrose, maltose, starch, and cellulose. So the glucose and fructose is the monosaccharides, sucrose and maltose considered as a disaccharide, and starch and cellulose as a polysaccharides. Carbohydrate is an organic compound, and it comprises of only oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. So this is a very important to understand this. This is a organic compound. This is formed in the living body. Like green plants. Green plants, with the process of photosynthesis, they make glucose, we all know, and this is the food for that. Now some will be used for the process of respiration, right? But some are used as a structural component for making its structure of the body. So I'm writing here structural component, right? So this is the body of any organism. You see, it will have carbon in it, and carbon in it in the form of different form of the carbohydrates, right? So this is helping in the forming of the structural component of the body. So this is considered as a organic compound. It is present in the living body, and it made up of only three elements, that is oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. The oxygen hydrogen ratio is 2:1. So if the oxygen is 2, then the ratio of hydrogen will be 1. As you can see, this is the empirical formula, begin with CnH2n. So CnH2ON. So suppose I am taking N as a 6. Then what will be the formula? C6H12, because this N is for O also, and this N is for this hydrogen also. Here it is 2, then N will be multiplied by 8, then it will become 2N. So 6 will be multiplied by 2, then it will become C6H12. I'm removing this bracket here. H12 and O6. In the same way, if you write N as a let us say 5, then C5H10O5, right? So in this way you can write the formula of different carbohydrates. Okay. Carbohydrates are the hydrates of carbon. Means hydrates means H2O. H2O, when combined with carbon, it will form carbohydrates. So technically, the polyhydroxyaldehydes and ketones. So this is also called as carbohydrates. So we can say that polyhydroxyaldehydes and ketone, because you know that CHO and this C double bond O. This is the ketone group and this is the aldehyde group, right? So this is the polyhydroxy of aldehydes and ketones. Carbohydrates are also known as saccharides, and the word saccharide comes from the Greek word saccharon, which means sugar, right? So this is this sugar word has been came from Greek word. Actually this is an English name, and this Greek word, it is called as saccharon, and the meaning is sweet. So this whatever this carbohydrates are there, they are also called as saccharides, and this saccharides name has been came from this word saccharon, from the Greek word, right, which means sugar. The carbohydrates are divided into three major classes depending upon whether or not they undergo hydrolysis, and if they do, on the number of products formed. So here we are dividing the carbohydrates into three major groups. We will see what are the three major groups, right, and major classes, and depending upon whether or not they are hydrolysis, undergo the hydrolysis means hydration of it, water molecule get joined to it, and the number of product and form. So on the basis of this is we are having three different classes of the carbohydrates. The number one is the monosaccharides. So the monosaccharides are polyhydroxyaldehydes or polyhydroxyketones. We have already seen that it is also called as the polyhydroxyaldehyde or polyhydroxyketones, which cannot be decomposed by hydrolysis to give simpler carbohydrates. It is already in a very simple form. This is the simplest carbohydrate, monosaccharide, simplest. So it cannot be hydrolyzed further, right? So the examples of monosaccharides are glucose, fructose, and galactose. These are the three different monosaccharides. Now, the second type, oligosaccharides. If we talk about the second type, then it is the oligosaccharide. First was the monosaccharide. The oligosaccharide, oligo means few in number, right? And they are the carbohydrates which yield a definite number, that is 2 to 9 of monosaccharide molecules on the hydrolysis. So we came to know that monosaccharide do not get hydrolyzed, but the oligosaccharides, which are few, meaning the few in number of the monosaccharide, they are made up of the monosaccharide, right? And when they undergo hydrolysis, they give 2 to 9 molecules of monosaccharides. The first type is the disaccharide. So let us take the example of this disaccharide, which yield 2 monosaccharides molecule on the hydrolysis, and which have the molecular formula C12H2211, that is the sucrose. And another example is the maltose. So now we can understand what is the actual difference between the oligosaccharide and monosaccharide, right? So monosaccharide can be further hydrolyzed and they can give the monosaccharide, but monosaccharide cannot be hydrolyzed. So one of the examples of the oligosaccharide is the disaccharides. So that disaccharide, when get hydrolyzed, it gives monosaccharide. So here you can see C12H22O11 by the hydrolysis, right, of this, it will form fructose and glucose. So sucrose is made up of fructose and glucose. Whereas the maltose is made up of 2 molecules of glucose. So maltose, when get hydrolyzed, it will form 2 molecules of glucose. Now, after the disaccharide, we are having the trisaccharides, which yield uh, 3 monosaccharides. So when it get hydrolyzed, it yield 3 monosaccharides. So here you can see the raffinose example has been taken here. So raffinose, when get hydrolyzed, it gives 3 monosaccharide as fructose, glucose, and galactose. Right. So this is the case of trisaccharide. Another tetrasaccharide, which having 4 monosaccharide, which yield 4 monosaccharide molecules on the hydrolysis and have the molecular formula C22H42O21, that is the stichiose. So in the figure, one of the figure is coming for the stichiose. We will see that how they are having this 4 monosaccharides in them. Now the third type, monosaccharide, oligosaccharide, then we are having the polysaccharide. So polysaccharide we all know, right? The carbohydrate which have the higher molecular weight, which yield many monosaccharides molecules on the hydrolysis, right? For example, the starch, glycogen, dextrine, cellulose, right? So they are called as polysaccharides, and they do not have uh, the property that they do not get hydrolyzed, as in the case of monosaccharide, right? So they are made up of monosaccharide. So here you can see when they get hydrolyzed, in the case of starch or cellulose, they give rise glucose. So in general, monosaccharides and oligosaccharides are the crystalline solids and soluble in water and sweet to taste. They are collectively known as sugar. So what are called as sugar? Monosaccharide and oligosaccharide, right? They are called as sugar. The polysaccharide, on the other hand, are amorphous, insoluble in water, and tasteless. So they are called non-sugar. So do remember this: monosaccharides and oligosaccharides. Oligosaccharides are considered as sugar, right? Whereas polysaccharide, they are amorphous, insoluble. They are insoluble in water, they are tasteless, and they are called as non-sugar. So this is a very important point. So here you can see sucrose made up of 2 monosaccharides, glucose and fructose. Raffinose, it is made up of 3 monosaccharides, right? And here you can see the stichiose, 4 tetrasaccharides. This is a type of oligosaccharide, and it is having 4 molecules, or you can say the monosaccharides, right? So sucrose, disaccharide; raffinose, trisaccharide; and stichiose, tetrasaccharides. Now here we are having a table that showing the difference between the monosaccharide, polysaccharide, and disaccharide. So if we see the character of sugar molecule, then monosaccharide is having 1 single sugar, polysaccharide 2 to 9, and oligosaccharide more than 9, always more than 9. Glycoside bond, glycosidic bond, so it is absent in the case of monosaccharide, whereas in the case of polysaccharides and oligosaccharide, they are present. So this is oligosaccharide, not poly, oligosaccharides, and this is the poly one, polysaccharides, right? Always more than 9. Molecular weight, it's very low, and it is having the moderate, and it is having high, because they are having more the number of monosaccharides. Taste, sweet, this is the minimal sweet, right? And it is not having any type of taste. So this is the difference between the monosaccharide, polysaccharide, and disaccharide. Again, some more characteristics on the basis they can be differentiated. Solubility, they are quite soluble. Again, this is oligosaccharides, and this is the polysaccharides, right? So this is monosaccharides are soluble in water, oligosaccharides insoluble, and this is also insoluble. Nature, always reducing, may or may not be, but this is always non-reducing, right? So glucose, fructose, and galactose, these are the examples of monosaccharide. Sucrose and maltose, malt is made up of 2 glucose and sucrose is made up of 1 glucose and 1 fructose, right? And if we talk about the examples of polysaccharide, then starch, cellulose, and glycogens are the examples of it. Now, monosaccharides, depending upon the number of the carbon atom, monosaccharides are of following types. So triose, having 3 carbon atom, glyceraldehyde and dihydroxyacetone, right? So this is the examples of the triose, glyceraldehyde and dihydroxyacetone. They are having 3 carbon atom in them. Now the next is the tetroses. They are having 4 carbon atom. Example, erythrose. Pentoses have 5 carbon atom, ribose and ribulose. So you all know this, ribose. This is the sugar that is present in the ribose nucleic acid, RNA, right? And ribulose, bisphosphate. So this is also one of the component in the that is comes under the Calvin cycle. When there is a Calvin cycle, then there is a this ribulose requirement. So this is a 5 carbon atom monosaccharide example. Next is the hexoses, and the best example is the glucose, which is having 6 carbon atom. Another example is the fructose. Now, if we talk about the haptoses, means the 7 carbon atom, then the best example is the pseudohaptulose. This you can see in the H-Lex cycle. So these are the some of the examples of the monosaccharide depending upon the number of carbon atom. Now, pentose and hexoses exist both open chain as well as in the form of ring. So two types of ring form, pyranose and furanose. Two types of rings are there, pyranose and furanose. Pyranose has hexagon structure while 5 carbon and 1 oxygen. So if it is a pyranose, then it will be an hexagon structure like this, right? 1 oxygen and it is having 5 carbon. Furanose has pentagon structure like this, means 4 carbon. These are the corners that are showing the carbon and this is 1 oxygen. So this is the furanose ring and this is the pyranose ring. Two types of ring structures are there. So this pentoses and hexoses, both this pentoses means 5 carbon monosaccharide and hexoses 6 carbon monosaccharide. They are having both this ring structure, the pyranose and furanose, right? A pentose is a monosaccharide with 5 carbon atoms, and pentose are organized in 2 groups. The one is the aldopentoses. They are having aldehyde functional group at position number 1. And ketopentoses, they have ketone functional group in the position either 2 or 3. So when they are ketopentoses, they will have the ketone as a functional group, and when they are aldopentoses, they will have aldehyde. This group is additional there, right? So let us talk about the aldopentoses. So aldopentoses have 3 chiral centers and therefore 8 different stereoisomers are possible. So stereoisomers are the isomers that are having a different structure in the space, right? And here the ketopentoses. The 2 ketopentoses have 2 chiral centers and therefore 4 different stereomers are possible. So here you can see D-ribulose, D-gylulose, L-ribulose and L-gylulose. And the three ketopentoses are rare. Some of the three ketopentoses that are rare are nectarine, saccharin, and cyclamate. These are the ketopentoses examples. Now, what are the ketopentoses? The carbohydrate may also be classified as either reducing or non-reducing sugar. So, all these carbohydrates which have ability to reduce the failing solution and Tollens reagent are referred to as reducing sugar. So, once they reduces these reagent, they are considered as a reducing sugar, while others that do not reduce these failing solution and Tollens reagent, they are considered as non-reducing sugar. And all monosaccharides and disaccharides other than sucrose are considered as a reducing sugar. Carbohydrates are also said to be the saccharides, right? So they are considered as sugar. So this is all about this session. We will have one more session to complete this particular topic. Till then, thank you very much.